Hi, this is Jim Gibson with CableSupply.com with NOAA Voice and Data Systems and also with Blackstone Cybersecurity. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the cloud, but I'm also primarily going to talk to you about how I studied for the CCSP, Certified Cloud Security Professional, and how I passed that exam. And maybe you can get some ideas out of it if you're interested in this certification. Maybe it's the first time you ever heard of that certification. And so you can, listen to what I said, some of the things that we're going to talk about, and see if it can help you decide to take the exam, and if you do, help you, give you ideas on how to study. Now, a few years ago, I did one on CISSP, Certified Information Systems Professional, and I talked about the fact that I could not find a lot online about other people had taken the exam and how hard it was or how easy it was, things like that, how to prepare for it. And so I talked a little bit about that. So if you're interested in the CISSP, you need to look at that other video. Today we're going to talk about cloud. We're going to talk about cloud security and how I passed the CCSP the first time. And you don't want to take more than the first time. These are not inexpensive tests. So I probably overstudy, which is fine to me, because it's not just the certification, and it shouldn't be with you either. It should be the fact that you want to learn the subject, and you want to be a subject expert in this area. And the more you can learn, the better you are, the more valuable you are to your organization, and the more comfortable you're going to feel in actually doing the work. So I overstudy probably, and I know I overstudy for the CISSP, and you can look at that certification, and that's a great certification. And so is the CCSP, by the way. It's a great certification. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, about how I studied it, about what worked for me. It doesn't mean just because it worked for me that it will work for you. So you have to have your own pattern. Now, some people like going to classes. I am not a class person, even though this time I did go to a class, and there was a reason why, and we'll talk about it. But I'm basically, give me the book, let me read the book at my pace, let me study, let me go back and see what's relevant to me. Let me take notes, things like that. So I'm that type of person who wants to set my own schedule. I want to set my own progress, and see what works for me. And that may not work for you. That's fine. But I'm going to tell you how I pass the test. Okay, so I do the same, and I've done Cisco tests. I've done a lot of different certifications. Most of them I let lapse. I'm not going to let the CISSP or the CCSP lapse. They were quite intense in the test. Now, a test is a 3-hour test, and it is focus. You don't, if you want to take a break, you can get up and take a break, but the clock continues to tick. You have to go to like a Pearson view, and you sit in front of a screen. The one I went to was really nice because they actually had headphones, noise-canceling headphones. It felt like I was in another world. That I wasn't being distracted by other people making noises, tapping their pens, things like that. So it was a really nice test experience at Pearson View. And I took the whole 3 hours, and I think you should also. And the reason why is it's not like a Cisco exam where you can only, at least when I've taken them anyway, you can only go forward. And I remember the frustration on the Cisco exams. I would get 3 or 4 questions past a question, and I would say, oh, now I know that answer from 3 questions ago. Remember, it clicked, but you can't go back. So it was a problem at that point. So what I like about the CISSP and CCSP was that you can go back and forward. So anytime I went through the test, I always started it over again. And I passed both. You want to pass them both at the beginning. You don't want to retake them because they're too expensive. And again, if you overstudy, it's going to benefit you, and you're going to do well in the test. You're not going to be nervous. You're going to have confidence and everything else. And you're going to know the subject. And I often expanded beyond the subject. So I would, if they talked about multi-factor authentication, well, then I'm going to see what other people are doing and what methods are out there being used and how it works and everything else. So I probably overstudied for these things. But let's get into the meat and what I did. Okay, so what I normally do is I pick up a bunch of books. I got a bunch of books. It's not tedious to me as a test book. to use all these books. It's just not. These are wonderful things. They're like gifts. People talking about how to learn something, and usually these people, not usually all of them, are people who are well versed in what they did, and they took the time to write it out, maybe research it to make sure what they're saying is accurate and precise. And so, these are like gifts, man. When I see people willing to do this, for what price? I mean, come on. Some of these things are like no price at all compared to the effort that's gone on to write these things. And some of these people are really talented writers, and even the dry ones are still worth their time in doing it. So I went through all these the books numerous times, as you can see. You can see my writing in there, and different things. I don't know if you can see it in there, but I highlight and I go through it and I take the tests. And even if you look at some of these tests in the back, and I'll see if I can find one that I've taken like 4 or 5 times. I'd write the month or the date on my answers to see if next time I take the exact same test, if I did better. So this is something I take seriously. Maybe it's in the back. Anyway, it's in there. And I take the tests over and over and over again. And there's actual books out there, official practice tests. This worked for me, and you can see I didn't do as much wear and tear on the book as the actual learning one. But these things make a difference. I mean, you buy a $35 book, a $60 book, it's a $600 exam. You want to pass it the first time. It's worth $35, $100 in books. Plus, you have this as a reference in the future. One of the books that I would recommend that you start with is this book, Certified Cloud Security Professional Official Study Guide by Ben Malisow. I met Ben. He's a good guy. And I'll talk about it a little later, but I do have a video interviewing him on his book, and he has a new one out. And I heard there's even more information, good stuff in there. But this is the first book I think you should read, and it's the last book I think you should read. So this is sort of like your bookends, and I just devoured this book. It's easy read. It's easy to comprehend. It's straightforward. I think, I've been studying Amazon Web Services, and I think in a lot of cases when it talks about the cloud and all that, this might even be better than some of that material I get from Amazon. And because it's so straightforward and so on, it's so easy to understand. He writes well. He does a really good job. And of course, he did both of these, practice exam one, and also the Certified Cloud Security Professional there. Now, if you notice on some of my books, this is almost worn off, I have numbers on them. Of course, I put number 1 here, and number 2 there, number 3. I probably marked them after I started, because I know I started with Ben's book first, and I ended with Ben's book. And I made sure I understood everything in it first. But I've gone through all these books in detail. You can see the ends here. It's just worth doing it, man. If you're going to learn a subject, be a professional about it. Learn the whole thing. Take the time. Learn it completely so you actually know this stuff. But I number these books, and there's a reason why I put my own number on the books, and maybe you can use this idea. And that is, I have these 3x5 cards out there that if you notice, it has a number on the top right corner there. Well, I use that as a reference number, so I know I got it from this book. Whatever book is on the 3x5 card. I'm trying to think. See, here's one for this book. So 2. So that would be Ben's book 2, and I talk about event management here. And so as I'm talking about that, I know what page it's on. So it's on page 80. So if I have a question, I'm going through the cards maybe a month later or 2 weeks later, and I say, isn't there more, or did I miss something, or I don't understand what I wrote down? Well, then I can go to the book itself, and I can actually look up that page again, exactly, what was said. So For me, these 3x5 cards work good. I don't buy 3x5 cards from other people. And the reason I don't buy their 3x5 cards is because you learn by writing. At least I learn by writing. So when I write up these 3x5 cards, I'm actually learning at the same time. I am, learning what each card has, or each subject. I'm writing it out. And what I'll do a lot of times too is I'll get a yellow pad, and in the morning I will go through these. So I'll look at the different things like cloud service broker. What is it? It's a third-party entity, and I'll write that out. CSB, cloud service broker, cloud service broker. So I would take all the information from, let's say, the book itself, but also from the appendix in the back, and I would look at each thing, get the definition down, things like that, write it out every morning, write that definition out. And that's what I would do. Then I would go back and study. And often if I did 2 chapters today, tomorrow I'll go back and I'll skim those 2 chapters. And then I'll go on to the 3rd and 4th, or the 3rd chapter. And I don't hit it every day, but I try to every day, pick up one of these certification books. And again, I'm working on Amazon Web Services now, and getting a lot in that area, learning a lot. But I name a number all my books, and it isn't by value, how valuable they are to me. It's just as a reference. That's it. And but the most valuable book in my library on CCSP is Ben's. This one is the most valuable. Now, I did break one of my standards. I never go to class, but I always use videos. So, I'm always using CBT Nuggets is a good one. There's a lot on YouTube that I use. I use a lot of free stuff on YouTube. And most of it is pretty decent stuff, and you learn. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes, it's too thin. It doesn't really give you the meat of what you need to know. But this time I broke my standard, and I did it for a purpose. And I went to a course at ISC, and it was during a conference. So they were holding these courses, and I needed to continue in education credits anyway. I was coming up on a deadline. And I thought, let's take the course. So I took the course, and I had an opportunity to meet Ben Malisow. And, I'm sure he's laughing right now at the way I pronounce his last name. But he taught the course, and it was excellent. And he's a great teacher. And of course, this is my book number 5. So if you looked at some of my flashcards, you'll see that, like in this one, I have number 5. And it isn't that this subject isn't covered everywhere else. It is in all these other books. But when I go through this and I see a subject that I'd like to memorize or something like that, then I go on and I read this. Or write it down on the 3x5 card. So it's quite a lot of books. You see it now. It's starting to pile up here. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books. I think there's like 6 total books that I have. And then, of course, this is probably only like 1/3 of my 3x5 cards. Probably threw out the rest by now because I passed the exam way back in December. When you pass the exam, you don't get the certification right away. You got to pass the exam. Then they do a background check on you. And then they, at the same time, you got to have endorsements from other people who are, CISSPs or CCSPs. And you have to prove you have 5 years experience unless you're already a CISSP, because if you're a CISSP, which is the 6-hour exam, and you get that certification, well then they already know that you're certified, that you already have 5 years experience, so they waive some of the requirements for the CCSP. I should slow down a little bit. But there are requirements, and you need to go to the website, which is ISC squared. ISC2.org, and join up. It doesn't cost you anything. Join up. Start, benefiting from some of the things on the website. Also, you need to go to them anyway to set up your exam through Pearson VUE. You need to schedule your exam. I wanted to take the exam back in November, but they didn't have any openings until December, so I had to wait a month, which gave me more time just to review the different materials here. So let's talk a little bit about the cloud and why I think this certification is important. And the reason I think this certification is important is because the cloud is a unique place and it's really interesting. And it has benefits there that you don't get in your own little data center or your own little data room. And you see some of the big organizations go into the cloud, and you know they've investigated this. So this is not the normal scary stuff that a lot of people say, oh man, the cloud, I don't know where the cloud's at. That's kind of dangerous. You don't know where your data's at, and you know, they may lose it, or someone can hack in and steal it. Well, you know, everything you say, these people say about the cloud is the same thing you could say about their data center or their data room, their servers that they have strung across the floor. You know, a little side note, I remember I walked into a office and they had like 10 servers, brand new. Man, can you imagine the expense of that? Laying across the floor there. And I said to the owner, I said, have you considered the cloud? And she leaned back and she said, I don't trust the cloud. And I thought, this is just as scary having this without any cybersecurity controls in your organization. It's more than just, you know, the computers. There's your organization here has to have cybersecurity controls within it and also within the network. The network needs to be designed right. We can go on for hours, but that's not what this is about. But the idea is the cloud is very secure, or is actually only as secure as you make it. Like when you deal with AWS, they say they secure the cloud. You have to secure yourself in the cloud. And so you both have shared responsibilities, and you learn that over CCSP, that you have shared responsibilities. You just can't throw things in the cloud and then think that it's all the cloud provider, it's Azure's responsibility, it's AWS's responsibility. No, it's yours. And if you do it right, and it's just not putting in there with passwords, there's more involved in that. If you do it right, you're gonna have a secure environment. Now remember, they have staff there. It's 24/7. They're experts in cloud and security, so they know what they're doing. They can help you. And if you understand cloud security, then you know how to secure your own cloud. You know, it's kind of strange the other day. Just another side note. I was doing some study in AWS, and it was a person talking on YouTube, and it was a very good class, by the way, except when he came to security. He said, oh, you don't need this. Oh, you don't need that. And I'm thinking, no, you really do. You really need multi-factor authentication. You really do need some of these other things in cybersecurity. And yet he kind of thought that, you know, nah, not really that important. Well, he was excellent in the other areas, I would say that. But he wasn't very excellent when it came to security in the cloud. And so that's the thing it taught me at CCSP, is it taught me how to do cloud security. And people are moving there, man. This is a good certification, and it'd be good for you. How long did it take me? Some people will ask that question. Well, how long did it take you? Well, sometimes before I do a certification test, or before I get interested in something, I'll read a book on it, and then I'll just put it aside for 3 or 4 months. So I would say serious study, it probably was 3 months, maybe more, maybe less, because I don't start out, you know, every day, do it. I kind of get the idea, the feeling of it and everything else, and I let it sit for a while, then go back and start really seriously. So I would say I started maybe in September of last year, and I took the test in December, and I was awarded the certification in February. So remember, it's not just passing the exam. You got to have 5 years experience, and you have to have you know, people who know you and know that, you know, you have the experience you claim, and you got to, you know, you have other requirements. You got to join ISC squared. But even if you don't have the 5 years experience, what they do have is they have a waiver for that, and you can become an associate until you get the years of experience. And then once you get the 5 years experience, real life experience as an employee, then once you get that, then you can get the certification. So they hold that for you. You're not going to lose it. Anything else, you have a couple, I don't know how long you have for it, because I didn't go for the associate. I am a full member. But go check it out. It's a good certification. I think, though, that you really need to be not only certified CCSP, but I think you also need some of the other certifications, such as the AWS or Azure or some of the other places out there, so you can actually, not only do the security in the cloud, but you actually understand enough about the cloud. You can program, you can put things up there. It's pretty cool, to tell you the truth. I kind of like putting things in the cloud. My whole business is in the cloud. Everything. I don't have servers anymore. I look at them and I see them as a waste of money, personally. And I know it's going to offend a lot of my friends who are Microsoft systems engineers who would just love to put those boxes all over the place. Some of the things you need to think about too when you talk about the cloud. It's you're paying for the air conditioning, you're paying for the air conditioning, you're paying for the electric, you're paying for the box to be updated every so often. You're paying IT staff to come out to update your operating system. It doesn't expand and doesn't shrink according to your needs. Yet in the cloud, if you program it right and you build it right, it expands and it shrinks according to your traffic that you need. So this is not a video about the wonders of the cloud. Maybe I'll do a video on that later. And maybe I'll do a video on some of the subjects under CCSP. But this is just how I passed the CCSP. So thank you for watching. And if you're so encouraged, take the test. Just remember, prepare for it. Thanks again. You have a great day. Bye.